and it tore me. I've never been, I guess, caught off guard that way.
Hey guys, it's Donnie here, and I just want to let you know that we've recently launched a content development company, and this company helps people get social content. You need to put out a lot of content nowadays to get engagement out there in all your social platforms. Well, we've come up with a really cool way to help you get videos, blog posts, memes, social posters, and infographics for whatever social site you need. So check us out at successchamps.us and learn more about how you can get social content for your social media.
Support for this podcast comes from Point Blank Safety Services and Blue Family Fund. Blue Family Fund, helping dependents of law enforcement families on their journeys. Blue Family Fund is a nonprofit that raises funds and offers financial support through higher education scholarships for dependents of law enforcement officers and by providing financial assistance for families of fallen law enforcement officers. Every dollar donated will go to the families of police officers, either through scholarships to dependents of police officers or as aid to fallen officers' families. Visit us at bluefamilyfund.com.
You're listening to Donnie Success Champions, where I believe everybody is on a journey. Life is all about the stories you can tell and teach later. You're going to hear the stories of people who have overcome hardships, failures in life to find success along their journey. All right, guys, this is going to be an intense episode. I'm bringing my buddy in, Daniel Gomez, and to hear his story, man. And let me tell you, I love it when people can really share their authentic end of the things they've been through. And Daniel's been through some tragic things in his life, and this is one of those stories. He's dealt with a lot of death and family members and everything else, and the dude is still pushing forward. It's a beautiful story. You're going to enjoy this one, guys. Here we go, guys. I'm bringing a good buddy of mine, Daniel Gomez, man. I've been enjoying keeping up with this story. Excited to have him on today. So, Daniel, my friend, welcome to the show, brother. Tell us your story.
Donnie, man, thank you for having me on your show. I'm honored to be here with you. It's good to find a fellow Texan on podcasting. And, man, I'll tell you what, Texas is so big, but, yes, it's so small. So it's good to finally be on a podcast here in the great state of Texas, where everybody has a cowboy hat and everybody has a horse.
All right, so we're going to clarify. One, you guys are going to hear a lot of y'alls, but I don't own a single cowboy hat. Now, I got the boots. There's not a single cowboy hat in my household because I've tried, and I just look like a goober every time I put one on. So, but I definitely got the cowboy boots. I got that down to an art.
I got you on that one, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, and I even gone so far. I've gone to the fancy cowboy boots, so they got like the turquoise top on them and everything,
Oh, man.
So I'm getting all fancy. So tell us a little bit about your journey, brother. How did you get here, man? I mean, I know you've had kind of a fun story.
Man, it's been a wild ride, just in life, you never know what's going to happen. And I think most people, I don't want to say just Americans, but most people think that money is the cure all in all for everybody. And it's not. Right. Last year, I got hit in the face hard. I'm 44 years old. My wife's 44 years old. We're about a week apart. And actually, a couple of days ago, September 29th, we got the phone call, and I was at work. I ran dealerships for the last almost 2 decades, almost 20 years. And, I was doing my thing at work. That's what I do best. And that phone rang, and I was surprised because my wife, she's been an amazing woman. She never calls me at work. She never bothers me at work. And not that she would bother me when she calls me, but she knows that I'm working. And so I said, hey, what's going on? And just tears were on the other side of that phone. And I couldn't calm her down. And I was like, what's going on? She couldn't talk. And the words that came out of her mouth barely were, she tested positive for cancer.
Oh.
And that sucked. Yeah, I mean, I'm just being honest. I'm a Christian, but it sucked. There's no other way to say it. And it tore me, I just saw I've never been, I guess, caught off guard that way. And, I've been through a lot in my life, just in general, with my dad passing away, some brothers passing away. But when my wife, when that, I think I've worked my tail off so long in the automobile industry, running dealerships and making sure everything's going good. And in doing that, you think because you pay off your house, you have your Harley paid off, you got you got your little financial egg there. But I learned real quick, man, that money's not going to save your wife. And I felt lost for the first time in a long time. I really felt lost. And I say that because back in 2011, I switched careers. I went from one dealership to another. I didn't really switch careers, but during that time, I lost my oldest brother. His name was Eusebio. And, he was a hell of a guy, but him and his wife got separated, and he just didn't recover mentally, and it broke me. He started drinking, wouldn't stop drinking, and I'd go and try to cheer him up, and just that's the phone call that I got. That I think that phone call kind of, now that I look back, kind of, I don't want to say I spiraled downward in a sense, but it affected me more than I think I realize now that I'm here looking back. And he ended up hanging himself, man. He was our oldest brother. We called him Junior. And I got a call from one of my brothers, and he just said, he was crying. I was like, what's going on? He goes, yeah. And my kinfolk live between me and you. They live up there in San Marcos, Texas, which is about an hour from San Antonio. And sure enough, they left him there. The cops told him not to move the body. So it just, you can imagine walking in and seeing him.
Yeah.
He used an orange electrical extension cord, and that really affected me. It really, I during that year, 2011, I got depressed. He passed away, and we buried him, and it didn't seem like it was something that was real to me. And with that, I got depressed, and I at the time I was working at a company called Enterprise, not rental cars, but the car sale division. And I just took about that whole month of October off, and I just, I was bummed out. And my dog Bucket, I love him a lot because he's the one that got me to depression, believe it or not.
Isn't it amazing what dogs can do? I'm amazed over the years, and we've had several dogs in our lives, and you always remember the great ones. I mean, I think you remember them all, but it's always wild to me, when you hit an emotional high or low, they know.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. And I had gone, I think one day, I guess, being home for the last 2.5 weeks, I didn't go, because I usually go to the gym and work out, and wasn't even doing that. And I said, I'm going to go outside and just take a walk. And like I said, it was around October, and I was kind of brisk. So I told Bucket, come on, let's go. So Bucket was, he jumps up and down. He's a little Chihuahua, right? He's half Chihuahua and half Winnie dog. He's cute. And he's a cute dog.
I got a half Corgi, half Chihuahua, and it's the most funky looking dog you've ever seen in your life. So a Chihuahua.
Yeah. So we go for a walk, and, he's pretty calm. I mean, usually when I take him for a walk, he's there. But this time he was just pulling at the leash, and I was like, what's going on, buddy? He goes, man. And I said, you know what? I hadn't ran in a month at least. So I said, you know what? I'm going to run you home. So we jogged home. And I think I was more tired than he was. And I got home. I was grasping for air. Like I said, I hadn't done anything for about 3 or 4 weeks. And so we went to bed, and, it was a night. My wife kind of just was leaving me alone at that time and letting me do my thing. And, well, lo and behold, my wife went to work. I didn't even feel her go to work the next morning. And Bucket's licking my face. And he has a leash in his mouth. And I'm like, really? And he's like, he's just there. You see Bucket in it. So I was like, I forced myself out of bed. And I said, you know what? I ran about half a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile. So let's go for a dog, Bucket. And, I started talking to him. I think for that first time, I really talked to my dog, and like it's like he was listening to me. I want to say he was my counselor. And he was just, he just went at it. And let me tell you, we got back from a 2-mile run, and his tongue was outside, and he was dying. But he was just he brought a smile to my face in a long time. And I was like, look at this guy, right? Like, this guy's over here. And sure enough, the next morning, God was in it, man, because he did the same thing again. And I was like, I think it's God's way of saying I need to stop feeling sorry for myself. And but I hadn't felt that low because my dad passed away when I was 26 years old. And at that time when my brother passed away, it was in 2011. So that was probably about 7 years ago. So had been about 11 years since my dad had passed away. And it took the life out of me, but my dog got me out of it. And, I think when that happens, you think you recover, but you get caught up in work again, but you still have that, I don't want to say that depression, but you still have that void in your life. Well, not even a year later, our next older brother passed away, and he passed away from cirrhosis of the liver. He drank too much, and it broke my heart because his daughters are my favorite nieces. They're like my daughters, and I raised them. And to see them go through that, and to see my brother just pretty much what happens when that your liver turns so hard that it turns like a stone, and you start turning yellow. And so I think after he passed away, Donnie, I became immune to death. And what I mean by that is, I don't want to say I was heartless, but I started, like people, like I said, I ran dealerships, and employees or people would say, yeah, my so-and-so passed away. I said, my condolences. And maybe I wasn't as affectionate as I should have been, or somebody had somebody that passed away in the family at work, and I'd be like, well, I understand, but, take a couple of days off, but I expect you back here at work by this day. And that was wrong with me because I was numb to it because I had been through my dad, through my brother, through my other brother, and it just, you become immune to it.
Yeah. What's crazy is I had a boss once upon a time, and I remember one of the other salespeople had a family member that passed away, and we were some of the top reps in the company, and she got time off work, but he really jumped her ass about how long she was away from work. And then flash forward a month later, he lost his best friend. And that guy came out and just obliterated in tears, apologizing to everybody, told that other rep to take the next month off. It's just, we don't often realize how people are effective of life, but we really don't realize how our life and what's happening in our home world and everything else may impact us as we continue to move forward, and how we may transpose that onto somebody else.
Yeah, and I didn't do it on purpose, but so this is where the kicker comes in, is that happens, and lo and behold, I think within less than 3 years, my other brother passed away. So it was like 3 brothers in less than 3 years.
My God, bro.
And I think by the brother Ted passing away, I cried. I'm not going to say I didn't cry, but I just didn't have any, I think I was all cried out. I was just numb.
Yeah.
And it stopped because I didn't, I look back now and I miss them. I miss all of them, but I was just immune to it. And it's not a good thing because your kids see that. My daughter sees that. My son saw that. Of course, my wife sees that, and your employees see that, and we buried them, and I mean it hurt, but then it turned into unfortunately we both, sometimes my brother didn't have a will, and it turned into a cluster. So needless to say, I think at that point, I think by that time my emotions were immune, and that was I think that's where my life started. Instead of growing in life like I was always growing, I think I thought I was growing, but I wasn't growing. I think that's when I became more engulfed in work, more engulfed in trying to make the dealerships run, and I would do that. So I guess I didn't drown my sorrow in anything but in intoxication of working hard and making sure that the bottom line was black and not red.
Well, here's an interesting thing is, I believe that people do things to escape what they don't want to face. And that could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be, I don't know what I'm into, but in your case, it was work, right? Work became your escapism.
Yeah, it was. And as you're going here, you're accomplishing these, like I said, you pay off your house, you pay all this off, but you lose track of the humanness. And I think God's way of getting me back in tune with life was, unfortunately, it was the only way he got my attention was my wife, because, God comes in here and he'll give you a bump in the road, and we ignore it. And I ignored it. And then he'll give you a fender bender. And my wife had a little run-in probably about a year and a half ago. And, I hear you, God, I'm here. Well, my wife would get better. And then 6 months later, Daniel was being Daniel, to say. And I think, the final straw was, okay, Daniel, I gave you a bump in the road. You just ran over that. I gave you that fender bender and you did okay for a little bit, but I hate to do this to you, but this is what's going to happen. And
here comes the right hook. Yeah. Here comes the right hook. Wow.
Yeah. And it knocked me on my ass. I'm going to tell you, it knocked me. I mean, what do you do? What do you do when your son's a teenager, when your daughter's young too? She's 20. And because I lost my mom to cancer. I think that's what really stuck me even more, is because my mom passed away. I lost my mom when I was 10 years old, and she had breast cancer. My mom was 37 years old when she died. And I remember that vividness of my mom. I remember going to the doctor, which I was young. I was 8, 9, those 2 or 3 years that I went with her. But I said, isn't that a karma, mother? I go, look at me. And I knew that I needed to have God back in my life. And we not to say that we didn't go to church, but I had one foot in, Donnie, and one foot out.
Right.
And you can't do that. And it humbled me. They came and they called me, and I guess I didn't see it, but they had asked, do you mind if we pray for your wife? And in my mind, in my thinking, I'm like, why would he be asking me that? But I think they saw the person I was back then. Mm. And I couldn't see it because it was me. But now looking back, it's like, didn't represent. I wasn't the person I am today a year later.
Well, what I think is interesting about that is you said you had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I think that's a lot of people move through their life in general, is they never go all in any direction. They're putting up safety barriers, whether they're all in on life or they're partially in on life, and whether it's whatever your philosophy is and belief in the universe, church, whatever it is. I love, as long as you believe in something, right? But you can't move through life and only half-assed. I mean, you've got to go all in.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you can't. And this is what, like, when my dad got diagnosed, going back to when my dad got diagnosed with cancer, my dad was my world. My dad raised me. My dad, I mean, you talk about crying like a little baby. I mean, the hardest thing I think was I left my job at the time, and when I was 26 years old, to take care of my father. And I never forget it. They gave him a month to live. And I remember going outside the hospital, and there was this big old planter, probably like an 8-foot planter, 8x4 planter in front of the hospital at University Hospital at the time. And I just cried out. I said, I believe in a God. I don't know you. I said, but if you help my dad, I'll serve you the rest of my life. And I just remember that night I went home, I got drunk off my butt, and I just cried like a baby. And I just woke up the next day, and I think God heard my prayers, because I woke up the next morning and I wasn't hungover. I was like, I felt different. And I remember going back to the hospital, and they were praying for my dad, and they said, hey, why don't you wait outside, because we only want people that have faith. And I was like, that's my dad. I go, I'll have faith. And by the grace of God, my dad lived a year longer. He lived a whole year instead of a month. So that year, I spent the whole year with my dad. We ended up having our own rito piñatas out of all things. And I'll never forget, it was around October. Everything happens in October, I guess, now that I say that, I think about it. But we were going to Laredo to go get piñatas. And I really had the flu. I was driving and I was shaking. We had like a big old U-Haul truck, Dodge, with a organ box in the back. And I was just shaking because my fever and my aches were so bad. And I'll never forget that, because my dad goes, pull over. And I was like, why, Dad? He goes, no. He goes, pull over, because I'm going to drive. And I said, nah, I got it. And I couldn't drive, man. I couldn't drive. And my dad goes, pull over. Daniel, when he would get mad at me, he called me Daniel. And what was so powerful about that is 2 days before, he had just had chemotherapy.
Mm.
So if I felt the way I felt that day, he felt probably 3 times worse than I did. And the level of father,
that's a beautiful thing.
He drove us home, man. He drove us home 150 miles. And I didn't see it at that moment, but looking back, I was like, by the grace of God, we got home. I mean, and I never forget that, because at those moments, being an entrepreneur, when things don't go the way you want them to go, I always reflect back to that truck ride coming back from Laredo, that who am I that my dad drove us home with chemotherapy in him and feeling like shit a month before he passed away, but he got us home. And you never forget stuff like that. You don't ever forget things like that.
And, I'm a firm believer that the world throws things at you to teach you a lesson. They never throw more than you can handle. And it's the ability to remember those particular times, because even on my journey, I've often found myself, stacked up against it. It's amazing how the things pop in your head and you're like, well, damn, if they can do that, then what I'm going through is nothing. Wow, what a cool memory to have of your dad. And, it's a cool lesson that you can pass on to your kids.
Yeah, because, I've been in this area, in this space with you, and podcasting, speaking, and coaching and training and everything, and probably for a year now. And times when I first got started, that, you're at that crossroad, and you're either going to make it or you're not. And when I hit that crossroad, I was literally inside of a restroom, car dealership, and I really asked myself at that moment, I broke down in tears, and I said, is this it? And something just arose in me, and crying in the bathroom, I'm not ashamed to say it. I said, God, if I ever needed you, this is a moment to help me. And he pushed me over that to the next dealership and did my sales pitch and to sell my services. But I think the fact that I didn't give up at that moment, I wouldn't be here talking to you, and I wouldn't be, releasing my book this month the way I am. But was it easy? Hell no, it wasn't easy. But I think a little bit of that persistence that my dad had that day, that he instilled in me, that somehow that came through that day in the restroom. Because if it was up to me, I think I would have just said, why are you struggling, Danny? You can go back to the dealership world and make $150,000 a year, and you know what? Life ain't so bad. But
right. What's wild to me is how many people have these epiphanies, whatever you want to call them, in the strangest, bizarre places. The bathroom, I'm going to make fun of you anyways. But my old man had one in a rock quarry, sitting in a rock truck, driving up on the hill, screaming out at God, same thing. And that's how we ended up in Texas. I love the fact that sometimes you really have just got to let go to find the next move, to find the answer, to find whatever you're looking for. And I think people are playing so close to the vest that they're scared of what would happen if they let go. But oftentimes when they do release and just say, all right, it's out of my hands.
It's ironic you say that, because I think that was my biggest problem, is being in the car business for over almost 20 years. You can run a dealership. I say this humbly, right? Now looking back, I can go into any dealership and I can run it easily, because I know people, first of all, and I know the car business. And I think coming into this arena, this area that I didn't know anything about, like where you were talking about podcasting, teaching how you learn on YouTube, I had an idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea how to do it. And so I felt frustrated. I felt overwhelmed at times. I felt like a dumbass, to be honest with you. Like I was ignorant because I didn't know. But, I found John Maxwell. That was a step that God led me to. I met some people on Facebook and, got some mentorship, and one thing led to another. And then everything, once I got traction, it was just exploding. You never know everything you need to know to get to where you're at here. But I think I'm happy that I crossed that plane in the bathroom, because it shows your children, like you were talking about, who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing, just being here talking to you. It's a blessing to me.
Well, I'm honored. Growing up, I had a buddy tell me, I think it was his dad saying that life's not about the things you do. It's about the stories you can tell later. And I've only taken that one step forward. And I think it's the stories you can tell and teach later. I think it's, you got to go through and experience things so you can tell people your story and teach them how to get through the path. And that's probably you've been through a lot of crap in your life, brother. I mean, yeah, a lot of very, very, very tough times. And people often forget, like we said earlier, how much that impacts them on the journey in business and everything else. And the mere fact that you can help somebody through whatever journey they're going through to get them past, to go on to that next level, dude, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I think, just having that persistence. I've always been, I've always tried to be positive and have that positive mindset. But I'm human, and we all go through that. And, I want to just share this with our audiences. I think sometimes we have the misconception that hard, challenging is to say, for the one going through it, to say me or you or somebody listening is going out there and working 15-hour days, or going out there and working 17-hour days, or going out there and that anybody can do that. Anybody can overcome situations like that. But your true manhood to me is when, you're there and your dad's on his last days, and you're watching TV and you don't expect him to yell, and he yells, and you're like, Dad, what's going on? And your dad's in the bathroom, and guess what? He can't bathe himself. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what do you want me to do, Dad? And I didn't say that. I thought it. I said, well, what do you need, Dad? He's like, well, I need you to come in here and help me. And I was just like, you talk about the hardest thing I've ever done, Donnie, is ever. It's not bench pressing 300 pounds. It's not working 16 hours. It's not speaking to military personnel. It's taking my dad a bath. That checks your core. That checks who you are as a person. And I'll never forget that day as a 26-year-old taking my father a bath. When that's the test of true manhood. They say, just being around men. Oh, I'll never clean my wife's behind, or I'll never do this, I'll never do that. But let me tell you, when rubber hits the road, if you don't do that, you're a coward. If you don't do that, you're a wuss. Okay. And I'll never forget that day because during those last days, my dad, the cancer went to his liver, and he kind of got bloated, so he couldn't see himself, and he couldn't, all the fluid after your body, when it starts shutting down, your body doesn't process that. So all the fluid goes to your testicles. So his testicles were so big that it was just the fluid that was there. That's when you test who you are. And I think remembering those days and going through those situations and trials, it's like you don't see it when you're going through it. But I see now, I don't want to say the benefits, but I see that there was in every cause, there's an effect. In every action, there's a reaction. And I can see that going through that when I was younger and being who I was, that it's prepared me for this time in my life.
Good on you. I had some experiences with my father-in-law, similar experiences, not as tough as that. But for me, after my father-in-law passed, me and his oldest boy dressed him because he was going to go out in style. Dude, let me tell you, that was tough. I remember every moment of that particular situation. So I feel you, brother. Yeah. Wow. What a powerful freaking story, brother. I'm honored to be a part of this. How are you using this and the stuff you've been through to really build upon what you're doing now?
I think what I've used is just, you can have a Daniel Gomez that's gone through it, and you can have a John Doe that's gone through it. And too many of us, we play that victim mentality. And when we play that victim mentality, and a good example is I was at a corporation, and there was this gentleman there. his wife had passed away many years ago, and, you know, it'd been well over 15 years ago. And as because when I go into these organizations to do training, I do a lot of coaching, and I said, I go, are you listening to yourself talk? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, I lost my wife and I did this and I raised my daughter on my own. And I said, you're not over your wife passing away from 15 years ago? That's what your problem is. That's what's keeping you from moving forward. And I'm not playing down the fact that his wife passed away, but I'm like, there comes a point in your life where you got to in my book, I talk about forgiving yourself, because it's one thing to forgive somebody else, but I think most of us, we struggle, especially men. We don't even realize that we don't forgive ourselves. The more we were talking, I said, I know what the issue is. He's like, well, what is it? I go, why are you so hard on yourself? He goes, well, I could have done this. I said, in essence, you're saying that you haven't forgiven yourself for that. And you do what you can do. When my dad was in his last months and last days, I did what I could do. When he died, I wasn't happy that he passed away, but I knew that I had peace in my heart that he did that. But most people, they play that victim mentality and they carry it for not a year, not for 5 years, they carry it for the rest of their life, a lot of people. And then they don't forgive themselves, so they get stuck in that mindset. And next thing you know, everything you attract to yourself, because your aura, because of the frequency and the vibration you're putting out to the world, to the universe, you're attracting more negative crap to your life. And you just gotta move past it. You have to, because if not, what good does it do me to feel sorry? And, you know, and I speak from experience, because one of my brother Ted that passed away, I was 10 when my mom passed away. My brother was 16. And he never got over her passing away. He would always say, how can you be so happy? And I'm like, Ted, what do you want me to do? I'm not going to stop living because mom's not here. But he was always, and this is how powerful just that resentment, that anger, that hatred, that bitterness. He was always sick. But he was always sick because he carried this resentment with him. And the resentment was so strong that his body was trying to fight it this whole time. So while I was trying to fight it, all this other crap was happening to him because he was causing it to himself.
Right. Mm. And what a cool thing to be able to stand in front of a room of people and know firsthand what somebody's going through and be able to take that moment to coach them through what's causing them from most likely achieving success and not allowing it to affect their workplace, because you can walk them through from personal experience. I mean, I don't think there's any better teaching tool in the world. And kudos on you, because there's a lot of coaches out there that Lord knows why the hell they're coaches, trainers, mentors. So good on you for using your life, the things you've been through as teaching tools to move forward. Tell us a little bit about your book, because I know it's getting ready to come out.
Well, it's called You Were Born to Fly. It's an amazing book, and I'm not just saying that because it's my book, but it's actually on Amazon right now. And what I love about You Were Born to Fly is because just exactly what we're talking about, so many of us, we live in that state of the victim mentality, of unforgiveness. And what happens with that, too, is say we lose a loved one. Say you're not on the spectrum of resentment or anger. Just say, like me, I got depressed with my brother, right? My oldest brother. And you lose your confidence sometimes. And in the book, I talk about confidence and self-esteem and to get that back into. My book does 3 things. It adds value to the valueless. It brings hope to the hopeless. And it breathes life into the lifeless.
How many times did you have to practice that phrase?
Not that much.
Just kidding.
It's in my heart. You know, I think when you speak from your heart, you really don't have to, I mean, I say this humbly, I'm authentic, I'm the real deal. When I train, when I coach, when I speak, I don't have to rehearse my speech. And, you know, I talk to speakers that, you know, you didn't practice. Like when you talk from your heart, buddy, you don't have to practice. Right. You have an idea.
You know, here's what just popped in my head. Here's what I like about you, Daniel, is there are a lot of gurus in the marketplace that come from the car world. And they're this over-the-top, scream in your face, you know, screw your neighbor, you know, type personalities. I love and docile is the wrong word, but I love how more gentle-natured you are. And I think you'll touch so many more lives than some of these guys that are out there ahead of you, doing this thing, just because you're coming from a place of genuinely want to help people out and deliver real value versus want your ego to be out front and be Mr. Spotlight. So I really, really enjoy that about you, bud.
Thank you, man. I really, really appreciate that. And it's something that it was there and I lost it and I got it back. But I think, my son humbled me, and just this year we were talking like me and you were talking, and he's like, Dad, I go, what's up, son? He goes, man, I really like hanging out with you. And he told me just like that. And I did. I said, well, what do you mean? I go, you didn't like hanging out with me before? And just like that, I answered him, and his face got serious. And he goes, no, you weren't a nice person sometimes. And I think when he told me that, it just crushed me, first of all. But it helped me realize as a father that before I lead any corporation, before I lead anything else, I got to lead myself, and then I got to lead my family. And I said, how awesome is it that I can provide a safe space for my son to tell me that in openness. And, that's what I talk about in You Were Born to Fly. I talk about, I don't use big words. I use simple phrases where people can understand, whether you're a student or you're you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s. But I wrote it from the heart, and it should have been released August 15th, but it wasn't released till actually my launch date was yesterday. So it's on Amazon right now. The hard copy, we got corporate sponsorship. So it's $9.99 a copy right now. The ebook, I could really use your help on the ebook, 99 cents a copy. Please go to Amazon.com, and, if you buy 5 copies right now to the end of Saturday, and you text me or you inbox me the receipt, I'll put your name in a drawing. So Saturday at my autograph celebration, we're going to give $100 away. 2 $100 prizes, we're going to give them away. So I believe in giving back to the people that support your cause. So when they read this book, it's not just going to be a book about me. It's going to be a book about what you can learn from situations that I've been through, and what you can learn from just content that talks about having confidence in yourself, believing in yourself, and this is, I want to share this because I believe that people need to hear this. Is when I talk about adding value to the valueless, most people, and I think statistics show it's over 70% of the people in this world undervalue who they are. They undervalue themselves as fathers, as wives, as husbands, as children. Because we live in a society, we live in this world that as we're growing up, you hear this phrase, you're never good enough. You're never going to amount to anything. That's your best. Well, why didn't you do it this way? So before you know it, you're not living Donnie's life. You're not living Daniel's life. We're living Donnie's best friend's life. We're living Daniel's mom's life. We're living our uncle who wants to manipulate us' life. And so we go down this path. It's like that saying, you work so hard to go up the corporate ladder, and you finally reach the top of the ladder, and what happens, Donnie? Well, you're leaning on the wrong building.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the wrong building because the life you're living, I was listening to, I don't know if it was Les Brown, but they were talking about how 89% of the working class Americans right now are not happy with their job. And that's because probably the job they're not doing, that's not their purpose in life.
Yeah, dude, it's so true. I mean, even my story was, I thought success was the big suits, the big tower, the big cars, because that's what you see. Society was telling me as a kid, all the flash is what success is. And once I got there, dude, it sucked, right? And it's funny to me how many people that I talk to that have that same story is you're miserable once you get there. Because there's no fulfillment in it whatsoever.
Well, and I think that's the message I'm bringing, is not to be successful, but to be significant. And to be significant is to add value to people, to appreciate them, and show them love. 2 years ago, I hated reading, and now I'm a big reader, so don't go read it.
Is there a lot of pictures in the books nowadays? I mean, is that what...
No mistakes. No. It's not easy writer or nothing, no.
I mean, I'm Daniel. I'll read your book as long as it's like a choose your own adventure or something, man. I'm in.
Oh, man. But I was reading and Think and Grow Rich, and I've read it several times. This is my third time, and I think as I read it this time, I love reading that book over and over because I always grasp something different because I believe you're in a different stage in your life and your mindset's different. But what really stuck out to me was this fact was that during the Great Depression, the Great Depression just didn't happen. If you look at what the years prior to the Great Depression, 5 or 6 years, the mentality was burn out the employees. We don't care what needs to be done. We just want all this manufacturing, the steel to be produced, and they didn't care about the employees. So in return, the mindset of our country back then was we want something for nothing. And you can't do that. And I think when you want something for nothing, at the end of the day, it's gonna crash and burn. And that's what happened to our country because how was it such a big epidemic that it affected the world?
Right.
But it goes back to the law of sowing and reaping. Whatever you sow, you're going to reap a harvest of that sooner or later. And I love what Napoleon Hill says is you need to learn whatever business you're in to give value, but don't just give the value that they pay for. Always give them an extra 10% above what they pay for, and your business will thrive. And if we have that mindset, anybody's small business, podcast, coaching business, whatever entrepreneurship you're listening to this podcast, it's going to thrive. But you can't have something for nothing because it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. And too many of us, we undervalue who we are. So guess what? As we start our business and we go out there, what do? We try to underchange our customers because we don't value who we are. So in return, we don't value our customer. So then we wonder why our business doesn't work. Well, it's because we're taking shortcuts all over the place.
Yep. Yep. No, it's amazing. And the shortcut you see is every day on LinkedIn, I got people hitting me up. They're like, I'll put you in the top 20 in iTunes, or, people are hitting me up, I got bots and things that will grow your Instagram, or, I got this, that, and the other. And it's like every day I turn around, somebody's trying to scam the system. And what keeps popping in the back of my mind, as soon as I start scamming the system, I lose.
Huh. I mean, And you're right. Just talking about LinkedIn, Facebook, I don't own Facebook, but I have a pretty good following on Facebook. And when I really started just using LinkedIn as a platform, you post something, you're like, yeah, and you're like, a day later, like, one like. I'm like, is that right? Because I'm usually going to Facebook and boom, 50 likes, 100 likes, whatever. But I heard something in a mastermind that changed my perspective, and it's been a blessing to me. If somebody likes your post, if somebody likes anything you put in, it doesn't matter the social media platforms. Everybody says Twitter. They're all different. They're all people. When somebody likes you, they're saying they support you in some way or form. Reach out to them and tell them, thank you for liking my post. I appreciate the fact that you support what I'm doing. And I never thought about that because everything came so easy on Facebook. But in LinkedIn and on Facebook and on Twitter, I started doing that. And people appreciate the genuineness, like you're saying. Don't befriend me and say, hey, well, can I sell you a lead sheet of 1,000 emails? I don't care about that because I see that now, like you're saying. But when I learn to add value and really appreciate people that you don't know on social media, because we're all human beings, the universe, God blesses you back. And praise God that I got a decent following in the group. And, like yourself, you said, thank you. How could I not share your post when you didn't know me, and I reached out to you, and I said, I would be honored to be a guest at your, but you took the time to do that for me. But most people won't take the time to share your post. Like, oh, screw it, I already got him in the bag, so I'll be on his show here in a couple of but most people think that way. That's the sad part.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's almost amazing how society works. It's to your point. There's a lot of society that, okay, I got what I need, I'm out, right? I don't need anything else, and man, I just don't think those people's businesses, their world is long-lived for anything. Look, we're all in this game to rise up and get better in our lives and our game and what we do. Remember, if you're just one step above where somebody else is trying to get to, pull them up with you. right? Because you're just looking for somebody else to pull you up the next rung.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the way it works. And that's what I talk about in my book is because I call it being a lifter, right? Be a lifter, not a downer. When you're a lifter, people come with you, and God, the universe, whatever your beliefs are, it's going to lift you up. But when you're a downer, it's not going to happen. And what I love, something I want to share with you before we end here, I know our time's almost up, is I challenge the human mind because since I'm a coach, I put some questions. I don't know if you can see them or not, but it's called a reflection point.
okay.
So I make you think about what you just read. That way you don't just go on to the next chapter. Because most people don't think for themselves. When I coach people, because I'm a confidence coach, they don't, well, I don't know. I'm like, it's in you. But when you challenge them to think for themselves, man, this is tiring. Yeah, because you never think for yourself anymore. So,
well, here's one thing that I want you to remember, and I want every coach in the world to hear me when I say this, is there was a point in your life when you were down, and your dog brought you the leash, which I think is just a beautiful thing. Two things that was so impactful. One, you had somebody that was wagging their tail at you and thought you were the greatest thing on the face of the earth, right? Which is a beautiful thing. That's why I love dogs. The second is that dog never said a damn word. But you were able to have an entire conversation and figure out a lot of things that were going on in your head and your story, your journey, and how to completely unscrew up your mind without somebody having to say a word. I think a lot of coaches miss the mark because they want to coach.
Yeah, you're right. And talking about coaching, anybody listening to this podcast, you can find my book, yes, on Amazon, Kindle version or the hard copy, like I said, but my website is danielgomezspeaker.com. And anybody that's on Donnie's podcast here, inbox me. You get a complimentary 30-minute confidence coaching session, whether you need it or not, or you might be on the borderline there. Let me tell you, we need coaching more. I have a coach, and I think I have stuff together, but there's always something that my wife even coaches me sometimes. But I say that because if you're lacking in some area or you need some boots in your life or your business isn't where it needs to be, I promise you it's right here, and you're lacking the confidence because you're not taking the action that you need today. So inbox me at danielgomezspeaker.com, and I'll get help you. I just transform, but I'm going to help you add value to your life and just show you things you never were aware of.
That's awesome, brother. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure the champions that listen to the show will as well. Here's how we like to wrap it up, my friend, and I do stump some people with this one, so be ready. So if you were going to leave my audience with a quote, a saying, a phrase, a mantra, a motto, something they can take with them on their journey, especially when they're stacked up against it and they're going through it, what would be that quote, phrase, or saying that you say, remember this?
It's easy. When a student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Awesome.
And that teacher can be a person. It can be a problem. It can be a victory. It can be bitter, or it can be sweet. But just because something negative isn't going on, that doesn't mean that the world's coming against you. It's maybe the world's using that to elevate you to a new level. Because the eagle flies in a storm, the eagle uses a storm to rise above it, not to be in it.
Oh, I love that. You need to get that put on a T-shirt. Well done, brother. Daniel, thanks so much for coming on the show, my friend. Thanks for letting me be a part of your journey, dude. Keep doing it. It's going to be fun to watch how big your story goes, man. So keep telling, keep rocking, and thanks again, brother.
Thank you for having me. Everybody, champions, God bless y'all. Remember, there's value in you. This is Daniel Gomez saying your life has a purpose. God bless y'all.
Thanks for listening to Donnie Success Champions podcast. If you'd like to hear more about our current guest today, or if you'd like to hear stories from our other guests on the show, come hang out with us on our website at successchampspodcast.com. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you need to reach out to me for any reason, you can catch me at Donnie@DonnieBoivin.com.